Hello and welcome to the first episode of Harvard Plays Retro. So this is a project that I've been waiting to do for quite a while, and I thought that the start of 2020 would be the best time to go about it. This year I want to try and play a few retro games on this Let's Play series and make a good show of trying to analyze how the games were made and help you, or help new players especially, understand what's so important about these older games and why they might be enjoyable, even if technology has marched on so far forward. And the game that I'm going to start with is Outrun, which is available on the Switch eShop as part of the Sega Ages package. And the great thing about Sega Ages is that their emulation is just absolutely top-notch. This is a recreation of the arcade version, and if you press X and go into the settings, you'll see that you can do just about everything with it. You can change the game versions to the remastered one or the original. You can change the difficulty, you can change how much time you get, you also get to map the controls exactly how you want, change the display, everything, right? You get so much control. M2, who make the Sega Ages series and a lot of other emulation projects, they go into the original source of the game and they just touch everything up and make it really modern. So if you're looking to get into retro games, I would highly recommend something in the Sega Ages series or something that M2 has done, because they refurbish and make it very modern. Whereas if you were to play something on the NES Online or the SNES Online, they're just gonna be the games as is. Okay, so we'll just get into the game first, and we'll talk a bit about it, and I'll talk a bit more about what I want to achieve with the series as well. Okay, so this is an arcade port, which means we do need to insert a coin. This game is pretty cool in that you can choose which song you want to listen to. I like Radiation, the nostalgic version, so I'm going to go with this.
Get ready.
And as you can see, it's just a basic pseudo 3D racing game. There's not a lot of mechanics, so to speak. You've got your timer on the top left, which shows you how much time you have left to play. You follow the curves of the road, and you hit the R trigger to change from low to high gear. Now in low gear you accelerate really fast, but you've got a lower top speed, whereas in higher gear you've got a higher top speed, but you accelerate slower. So the goal is to switch between these gears and to maintain your speed in the difficult turns, and make it the most efficient run you can to, finish the course before the time runs out. And you can't really see it now, but it'll appear later. Oh, you can see it. It's the bottom right. You see that little triangle there shows the way that the stages are set. And so when you get to the end of one course, you can choose to go either left or right, and that'll determine the stage you go to. And for each final level you do, you'll have a different ending to experience. And here we get to the first crossroads. And once you reach this checkpoint here, you'll get your time extended. And that's the amount of time you have to get to the end of this stage, and vice versa, and so it goes. So the main obstacles in this game are other cars. If you hit them, you slow down a little bit, or if you veer off the road, you will suffer a very significant, a significant downgrade to your speed. And if you hit one of the objects like these wooden pillars, or stone pillars, what am I saying? Stone pillars, your car will do a big flip and your characters will fall out and it'll just be horrific and you'll lose so much time. So generally, if you hit an object on the side of the road, you're probably not going to recover much time. Because look, you've got to wait for your car to reset, you've got to wait for the gears to switch to top speed, and then yeah, it's unlikely that you'll be able to make very good time in that level after that. Whoa, yeah, I'm still not very skilled at this game. I think most of the players back in the arcade days would have, at the very least, memorized the main turns of the course, and so they'll know what's coming up, they'll know when they need to buffer their turns, when they need to brake, and when they can be a bit more risky. Okay, so this time let's go to the right side. And after this first run, what I want to do is kind of break down how this type of racing game is made. because it's not a three-dimensional game, although it really looks like one. It's very good at giving the illusion of high speed. And when you play this game, and I highly recommend you pick it up and try it out, you get to feel like you're going really fast, even though you're not really going that fast, right? Your car is actually completely stationary. It's just the illusion of the background moving. And this sensation of speed is more impressive in this game than I would say in a lot of commercial racing games today. I'm doing so badly. This is one of the few games where I can't talk while I play. Yeah, I think that the visual trickery that the designers have used in Outrun, it should be really highly commended, because sometimes when you want to play a racing game, you still can't go past this, even though this was released in, I think 1986 or something. So this game is, as of this year, over 30 years old. It's still got a better game feel than your average Need for Speed, depending on which iteration you buy. Just very simple, no nonsense, simple controls, simple mechanics, just good game design. I don't know if I'm going to make this next checkpoint. It's because I messed up a lot in that one. I'm playing even on the most forgiving time setting. Oh my goodness, yeah, just missed the checkpoint. You can see it on the horizon. I picked the most lenient of the time requirements, and even then I can only get about halfway into this. You also get to submit your score. The scoring system in this game is a bit esoteric. It's mainly down to how many cars you pass, and that's affected by your game difficulty. Okay, I think I should do another run of this because there's definitely more to talk about, and then we can break down exactly what are the mechanics under the hood of this thing. There's a lot of nice details too. I love that he's turning the dial on the radio, and the radio station changes. That's so cool. Alright.
Get ready.
Let's go. So this game, it's an arcade port by Sega, it's an arcade game by Sega, but it was originally ported to the Sega Genesis, and it's quite faithful as well. So if you happen to come across a copy of Outrun for the Sega Genesis, that's also quite highly recommended. However, the game's sequels, so Outrunners and Outrun 2 and Outrun Turbo, I'm not entirely sure what the names are. Those ones are great arcade games, but they're not as good on the console. This was around the time in history where Sega was still a really strong force in the arcades, and they were putting out a new hardware chip just about once every year. And they were constantly just pushing the boundaries of what an arcade game could do and what it could look like, what it could feel like. This is around the time when we got games like Space Harrier, and 2 years before we got Super Hang-On, which is a motorcycle racing game that's kind of like this as well. And we really got to see just creative programming and creative ways to solve problems based on hardware limitations, and also just really good ways to show off what the current hardware of the time can do. That's one of the reasons why I like playing retro games so much, is that back in the old days, the developers had so many limitations on the way they could design their games, right? Not like today, where a lot of these concerns are just completely by the wayside. They don't need to worry about file size, most small developers don't need to worry about processing power, or they have 3D graphics now, so they don't need to figure out how to make the illusion of 3D. There's lots of things that I think today we take for granted, whereas in the past, in the 80s and 90s, they were catalysts for very, very good game design. Because I'm certainly sure that the creative solutions that the design team at Sega used to make Outrun and make it feel this good, they wouldn't have existed if there weren't these types of technological limitations. I realized I took the same routes as last time. I'm going to try and change it up a bit so you see how each of the stages has a different graphical feel to it, as well as a different set of turns. One of the things I don't like about this game is that they don't have a course map, so you can't really see where you are in relation to the turns up ahead. You need to rely on the signs on the side of the road. Aside from that though, there's really not much to complain about. Okay, so this course is more of a sandy desert. You slow down a little bit if you drive in the pools of sand? I don't know what you would call it. The patches of sand. And these cars that travel across from you, they're just random, they're just obstacles. So they move in sometimes quite erratic patterns, but as long as you can just avoid them and stay well clear of them, then you'll be fine. This course is a bit more forgiving because there's no hazards on the side of the road, so there's no way to go flying like in the previous one. But the turns are a bit more erratic here. Okay, so let's go left. So we'll still be in a stage that we haven't seen before. We're making much better time this run, so hopefully we get to try and see one of the endings. That is, if I don't mess up on one of these last two stages. You can definitely see that this was built for the arcades. It's something like a quick 10-minute experience, so I would highly recommend it if you're the kind of person who just plays the Switch game while they're waiting for the bus, or, you know, when you have about 10 minutes to spare. It's a great adrenaline fix that doesn't take up too much of your time, and it's quite endlessly replayable because I feel like the sensation of driving in this game just never really gets old. Even though if you were to put it on paper there's not a lot of things to do, and there's only something like 25 courses. Not 25, my math is probably off. But aside from that, it's just a lot of fun to replay. A lot of fun to see how you go, and oh my goodness, my car is flying off into the distance. Will I make it to the end of this course? Who knows? Okay, let's get into high gear and see how we go. Dodge that tree just then. Okay, I think I am gonna make it. So let's go left one last time. The geography of this location doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We just went from deserts to snow-capped mountains. This game was actually inspired by the creator Yu Suzuki. He made a trip to Europe to try and scout out locations for what could be a fun racing game. And that's where he got the idea for a lot of the environments here, as well as the decision to use a Ferrari as the car. There is a very subtle European aesthetic to a lot of the places that you go past. And I think it does a really good job of setting it aside, setting it apart from most of the other racing games at the time, like Super Hang-On and Namco's really famous one called Pole Position. They were more based around racetracks, so just green on the sides, red and white stripes, and not very scenic. It's just go forward as fast as you can. Whereas this one, you definitely feel like you're going on more of a journey. You're going through different areas in your bid to go to the end. Got 19 seconds. I have no idea if I can make it to the end. I don't know how long this course is. If I spin out though, I definitely won't make it. Yeah, this isn't looking good. 5 seconds left. Okay, nah. Close. Really close. Oh wait, no, I did make it. Oh, okay, I didn't see it. The finish line wasn't there. Alright, and we get to the goal. Get to see a cool ending animation. And a joke which is very fitting the 1980s values that this game came from. Alright, we get a nice map of where we went. And so that means there's 5 total endings of this game, and I've heard there's a secret ending as well. I don't know if I'm ever going to get to that, but okay, we'll put in our name just for now. What's my name? H-A-R. Okay. So now let's talk about how this game was designed and what makes it work. Okay, welcome to the analytical portion of this retro Let's Play. Now, I don't know if I'm going to go into this level of detail for every game I do in this series, but I think that Outrun especially has so much interesting stuff to talk about that I figured I would make a little package to show how each of the individual mechanics of this game works. And just a word of warning, the animation quality for this sequence is going to be terrible, so I am apologizing in advance for that. I don't really have a complicated setup of graphics packages or anything like that, so this is done on all good old-fashioned PowerPoint, so maybe one day things will look better, but right now, today is not that day. Now let's jump right into how Outrun creates the illusion of speed. So, as a reminder, this game is entirely 2 dimensions, it's not in 3D at all, and it uses a variety of visual trickery and deception in order to try and convince you that you are actually moving forward at a significant rate. Now, we'll look at, first of all, the graphics, and the way the game creates the illusion of movement. Now, I use this game, 1942, as my example here because when I first started to learn a little bit of game development, one of the first things you learn is how to make a scrolling top-down shooter like this. And when I started out, I thought that these games were made by making one very long room and then moving your plane, the one here, forward slowly. But actually that's not the case at all. This plane is effectively staying still, and everything else is moving downwards. So this island, for example, is actually an object that's been programmed to move downwards, and they all just appear in this space off screen. And the reason they do that is so that it's a bit more efficient. They don't need to manage a giant room in your game. All you need to do is tell the level where to start placing the objects. And this is what happens when you're playing Outrun as well. The only thing different is the perspective. Now, how is this perspective made? Let's look at just a random picture of a road from Google Maps. Now, this uses something called one-point perspective, which is where we notice that in the far distance here, all the straight lines that should be parallel actually converge onto a point, and we call it the vanishing point. Now, if we highlight that vanishing point and trace these straight lines that move towards it, they're called vectors, and we'll eventually see that everything that's meant to be straight in this image goes towards this direct point. And now if we isolate those lines and take away the rest of the image, we see something that looks like this. Now the way that Outrun works is that it makes sure that every one of these lines is dotted or dashed or segmented in some way. So let's do that now. And we've got a little Outrun car here as well. And so the way the illusion happens is once these lines start moving, it looks like the car is moving forward, even though if you focus on the car here, it's staying still. So let's just try that now. If these lines move just a little bit and you're focusing on the car, you do kind of get the illusion that it's moving forward. And we can heighten the sense of illusion by if we make the lines go faster. So using this example, now the car seems like it's going faster, right? And we can add a few more elements to this too. For example, if there was this tree in the left side of the screen, and it didn't move, so if the lines move, the tree doesn't move, then it kind of kills the illusion, right? It doesn't look like movement anymore. But if we make the tree move along with the lines that we've made, we've created the illusion again. And one last thing you can do is you can change the tree's size. This is something that the Sega hardware for Outrun is very good at doing. It's very good at taking a small sprite and then zooming it out, making it larger as it comes towards you. So if we have this effect, you can kind of get the illusion that the tree is getting closer to you. And so if we have a bunch of them on the side, then this is exactly what happens in the game, right? We see all the different pieces of scenery whiz past you and it seems like you're going really fast. And the last thing we can do is if we put a tree in the middle of the road, we can also create the illusion of a collision, which we'll get onto a bit later in this video. So now that's how the game creates a sense of speed, right? This is actually not unique to Outrun, and it's not that groundbreaking when Sega did it in 1986. One of the first games to do it well was called Pole Position by Namco. I think there's a few games that predate it using the same technology, but Pole Position was one of the most famous and one of the most effective. And you can see it using all the same techniques that we've been talking about so far. There's a vanishing point, there are these lines all around the road that focus towards the vanishing point, they're the vectors, and they are all segmented in some way, so you can see them moving towards you. And in the same vein, an object starts off at the far distance and then zooms out as it gets closer to you. And you can notice that this object is actually a sequence of different sprites, and it's giving you the illusion that it's getting closer, but really it's just getting a lot bigger on your screen. And the main difference between this and Outrun is that you can see the scaling for the sprites in Outrun is a lot smoother. They're much better at taking something that's very small and making it very big, and they're also able to show a lot more sprites on the screen at once. And I think all the different levels in Outrun use this to some degree and in a different way, so that you create a sense of variety in the environment. Like if you look at pole position, it's all kind of like green and basic, it's not very interesting, whereas Outrun can give you a sense that you're traveling through different environments, going from one place to the next. Okay, so one more thing to talk about is, now that we've created this sense of speed, how do we make it feel like a game? How do we infuse some kind of challenge into the experience? Well, there's two things that Outrun adds. First is turns and cornering, which is very important because this game's on a very strict time limit. And the next thing is obstacles, which will slow you down. Let's look at turns and cornering first. So how does this game give you the sense that you're going down a curve in the road if you remember that actually you're still not moving, right? This is still a two-dimensional image. You're not actually turning, you're not actually moving forward. So how do we continue that illusion based on that vanishing point theory that we talked about just then? Well, there's actually a very easy way to do it, and that's just to move the vanishing point. If you just use that example before, move the vanishing point slightly right. And you'll notice that computers are actually very good at creating a curved line. If you say, start from here, pass through here, end it here, they're very good at making curved lines like this. So we just do that, and we take out the red lines from before. Now, and then we add a few of these turning signs that I've shamelessly stolen from Outrun, then it looks like the road's curving, right? This is exactly what the game does as well, is that it just tells the vanishing point to move in a different direction based on which way the road is going, and naturally that'll create those curves that makes it look like the road is turning. Now we've run into a bit of a problem. The road looks like it's turning, but your car isn't, right? Your car is still going straight. So how do we make it feel like the player is on the bend on the road? Well, what the game does is it creates some force onto your car and tells it to move left. And so if you were on this road and you didn't press the right button to turn along the road, then your car will be pushed slowly to the left and you end up off the road and you hit a sign. And this effectively means that if you're on the curb and you press the button, then you push the car in a different direction. And this is a simple one for the hills in the road. You just move the vanishing point up or down. So I think, I could be wrong, but if you're making the crest of the hill, then you move the vanishing point down so you can see less of the horizon. And so if we just do that, it's supposed to look like there's a hill. This isn't the best example, but if we see here, right, we can see that actually the vanishing point is moving down and it's leaving the sky in the same place. So it looks like you're cresting over a hill. And on a turn, you can see also that your car is actually being pushed in a certain direction based on the road, and if you're hitting a directional button to turn, it's counteracting that push. And that way it seems like you're on a curve when really you're not. And I think the big difference between Outrun and some of the other vector racing games is that they've tuned this sensation very well to feel like you're on a curve. Whereas some of the games, it's kind of hard to get the sensation of actually making a corner. Now, also pay attention to how the car itself doesn't move on the screen at all. It's actually the road that's moving. And so this is always a camera that's moving. And this helps you, again, create the illusion that you're going down curves in the road. Okay, last thing to look at is obstacles. Now there's two kinds of obstacles in Outrun, and we've just hit both of them in this example. There are the other cars that go past you, and they move along the road. And then there are the bigger obstacles on the side of the road which cause you to spin out, or in worst cases, your car to completely flip over. Now, remember that this game is 2D, so none of these items are actually existing in a three-dimensional space. There's no collisions in a programming sense in this game. Instead, the game just checks if there is another object existing on the same line that you are, and it will play out a consequence if that happens. So for example here, if you careened off the road and you touch the sign, or the game recognizes that the sign and your car is meant to collide, and so it plays out this animation and then it resets you back on the road, having lost some time. This way, there isn't actually any collision physics or anything in this game. It's just telling the car to play out a certain consequence depending on what happens. So if the game discovers that you're on the same horizontal line as another car, then you'll spin out, and if you happen to touch something on the edge of the road, then you can spin out like that. Okay, so let's look at how all these things come together to create a compelling game. So we have this illusion of speed, and the way the road turns and goes up and down, that way it feels like you're actually driving a real car. And then they've created these curves and hills to create some challenge. The way that you corner in this game is actually very important to help you save time and help avoid careening off the road into obstacles. And so now this becomes a game about traveling a large distance in a short amount of time. It's not a game about maneuvering or overtaking people or having the best race time or whatever. It's definitely more about reacting to obstacles and managing your speed in a useful way. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at one more run of Outrun and see how these principles work together to create a good experience. Alright, so we're back on the road, thankfully, and let's take another crack at this game and see exactly how these techniques are being used. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put some analysis into these retro gameplays, is to appreciate the way they're being made and to have a bit more conversation to say as well while I'm playing. I think it's a better way to illustrate how the games are made and what makes them effective. Alright, I have pressed the wrong button.
Get ready.
This time I think we'll go towards the right side and we'll see if we can, first of all, beat the game again, but also get in touch with some of the other sites that we missed out on our first go around. Okay, and you can see the sprites are actually zooming by really, really fast. I think this is one of the advantages that Sega's hardware, both in the arcades and on the Genesis, had over the SNES and what Nintendo was doing at the time. They were much better at having more sprites on the screen and having them scale and scroll at a faster rate. Like right now, I genuinely feel like I'm going at 200 kilometers an hour just because of how fast everything is moving towards me. And I'm a bit out of practice because I haven't played this game for at least a week since I recorded the first half of this video, so might be a bit rusty, might run into a few obstacles, I don't know. I'm definitely not the kind of person that memorizes a track layout when they play racing games, so a lot of this is just improvising and seeing how I go. I was actually really impressed with how diverse the environments are in this game as well. So, whoops, ignore that. So the director of the game, he actually traveled across Europe and took a look at some different locations that could have been good to put into this game. And part of that trip inspired him to make this red car, the Ferrari, and also helped him understand how diverse some of the European environments were. And we see that in the way that these levels are designed. I'm going to hit everything. It means that there's actually a lot of unique sprites. Like these wispy, transparent trees, I think only appear in this stage. And every stage has its own individual gimmick, its own individual look. It's very unique, very interesting, very colorful. And it gives you that sense you're going on a cross-country drive, which is something that a lot of the early racing games are missing. And once we talk about, I think we'll move on to F-Zero later in this video. Once we do that, we'll see just what a difference that can make. I also haven't really been paying attention to how many different types of other cars there are, but it feels like there's actually quite a few. Like that brown one. I don't know if they just do palette swaps or they have whole new sprites for all different kinds of cars, because there's lots of different cars here. Okay, there's that brown one again. Now on the right side we've got these cliffs, and the left side there's a flower field, and they all move really, really fast. Sometimes the collision detection for oncoming traffic is a bit wonky, so I should have gotten hit there, but I didn't, so let's just ignore that. One frustrating thing is that the cars can't come from behind you, because that wouldn't be a fair gameplay experience, right? So if you overtake a car, then the game considers it as non-existent anymore. Like back then when I slowed down, the cars that I overtook didn't then come back and come forward again. That's something that this style of design, it's definitely a limitation. It can take you out of the experience if you're not, if you're paying too much attention. But then again, who pays attention when you're driving this fast? This is also a great music track, by the way. I forgot what it was called, but there's a decent amount of selection here. What are we driving past? Are these old church steeples? Can't even tell. Oh, we got the ocean on one side too. I don't know if they programmed in an animation for the car going into the ocean, but I'm not going to test that because I'm making pretty good time on this run. I think I might be able to finish. Oh, they did! They did! You can see like the water splashing off your wheels. I'm impressed. I love it when these retro games show that they still had a really good sense of detail and a really good eye for small moments to make something seem more realistic, even though they know the graphics aren't really going to stand up to scratch. Okay, so regulating my speed here, making sure I use high gear whenever possible. Whoa, and that was a mistake. I always find that animation to be weirdly funny. Like the car just flips and the man and the woman just kind of sit on the pavement and go, whoops, that was a mess up. Okay, I wonder if we're gonna have enough time to pass this level. Oh, we definitely will. We definitely will. It helps that I set the time limit to the most lenient setting, because in the original arcade version, it's actually very strict. You gotta remember that these old games were designed to steal as many coins as possible from kids, so they had to make it hard. Okay, this is the last stage for this leg. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish it in 65 seconds, but I'll try my best. This one's more of a deserty vibe, more shrubs. I like the little touches, like on the right side you see some more of that kind of desert grass, and on the left side you've got nothing. I think I read somewhere in the interview that the director of this game wanted it to be a 3D space, even though the technical limitations prevented that. So he planned out the levels as if they were 3D spaces. And I think that definitely helps in some regard. It makes it feel much more realistic than something else that's also a vector racer like this. Okay, let's kick into high gear. Some of these S-bend turns are particularly devious because the game will push your car in a different direction at a moment's notice. It doesn't feel like what doing an S-bend would feel like on a 3D racer. It is definitely a little bit unnatural, but the big left and right turns still feel right. Okay, so we beat that with 3 seconds to spare. And we're about to get to an ending. Oh my goodness.
Congratulations!
Get a trophy. What's gonna happen this time? '80s humor at its best, really. Okay, and did we get a high score? Probably not, but let's see. Oh, we did too. Nice. I don't know how to insert letters. Okay, P and L. I don't know what that means. But yeah, thanks for hanging around and playing Outrun. I think for this video we will take a look at a second racing game, which we'll I don't know why I'm hiding it. We're going to take a look at F-Zero. I'm going to think about how Nintendo makes this sensation of speed using actually very different principles. And we'll talk about which one is more effective or whether one is, I guess, better than the other. Alright, see you in part 2.